Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Chicken Tinga. That's right, this is one of the most versatile and delicious chicken recipes I know. And while extremely easy, it does take some time to make and involves about half a dozen steps. But the incredible burritos, tostadas, and tacos it produces more than make the effort worthwhile. And that is a guarantee, otherwise you're dinero back. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with the first step. And that's going to be to poach a whole bunch of chicken thighs. And we'll be using the boneless, skinless variety. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer 3 pounds into this pot. And then to that we will add 3 whole peeled garlic cloves, as well as 1 onion that we've cut in half. We will also toss in some kosher salt, as well as a nice big pinch of dry oregano. And then we will finish this off with a quart of homemade chicken stock that I've transferred into a carton to make it easier to pour. So we'll go ahead and pour in 4 cups of chicken stock or broth. And then, because I like to decide things, I also decide to add a cup of water. And then what we'll want to do is crank up our heat and bring this up to a simmer on high. And I should mention, if you want, you could use all water here. But by cooking our chicken in a stock or broth, we're going to get a little more delicious and savory flavor. And then what we'll do once simmering is back our heat down to medium-low and simmer this for 30 minutes. And other than maybe giving it a stir or two, there's really nothing to do. We'll just hang out letting that simmer for about 30 minutes, at which point it should look something like this. Our onion halves will have softened up, and our chicken will be fully cooked through. And then what we'll do at this point, besides turn off the heat, is use a strainer to remove our onions into a bowl. And definitely save those, we're going to use those for the sauce. And then we'll do the exact same thing with our chicken thighs, removing those to a bowl. And by the way, people are always asking for product recommendation videos, which to be honest, I really don't have that much interest in doing, unless the money's right. But this type of strainer is definitely one product I do recommend. And in the business, we call that a spider, which is short for spider web. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and remove our onion and chicken, which we will allow to cool before we tear it up. And then what we'll do next is go ahead and strain our stock, because in the next step, we're going to reduce that by about half. And you may notice as I remove this strainer how some fat is rising to the top. If you were smart, you would use that for this next step, which is to saute 1 onion over medium heat in the same pot. And because I'm not smart, or at least didn't think of it, I did mine in some olive oil, which will work. It's just not as good as chicken fat. And the chicken fat was free. But either way, we're going to saute 1 onion with a big pinch of salt. And we will cook those onions for about 4 or 5 minutes or so, or until they sort of soften up and start to get a little color on them, which is what I have right about here. And once that's been accomplished, we'll go ahead and pour that strained liquid back in, and then crank our heat back up to high, because as I mentioned, we do want to reduce this down by about half. And no, we're not going to measure. But what we can do is sort of use our wooden spoon as a guide, and we can sort of see the level we start at. And we'll continue boiling that on high until we have about this much left, which I'm going to say is about half, or maybe a little less. So that is looking pretty good. And at this point, we can go ahead and add our sauce mixture, which, by the way, you should be making while this is reducing. Okay, we're not just going to stand there watching a pot boil. While fascinating, it's just not good time management. So while that liquid is reducing, here's what you're going to want to do. We're going to want to buy and open 1 can of Chipotle peppers, which come packed in this amazing adobo sauce. And if you're not familiar, these are fully ripened red jalapeno that are smoked over a fire and then packed in this thick chili sauce. And to prepare the sauce, we will add those to our boiled onions in a blender. And because that adobo sauce it comes in is so delicious, we don't want to waste any. So we'll rinse out our can with a little bit of stock or water and pour that in. And then we're also going to want to add about 3 cups or so of tomato product. Personally, I'm going to use a can of San Marzano tomatoes because they're amazing. But if they're in season, peeled and freshly chopped vine-ripened tomatoes would also be amazing. And yes, that is a little bit of basil you see that was packed with the tomatoes. And no, that's not going to be a problem. It might even help. And then what we'll do is go ahead and pop on the lid and blend this nice and smooth. And as you know, we like to start off slow. So I'll pulse on and off using the on-off button, cleverly avoiding the pulse button that's actually provided on the left side. But anyway, once that gets going, we'll crank it up a little and blend this until smooth, at which point we'll go ahead and transfer that into our pot. And by the way, a little tip to avoid splashes If you pour that against your spoon like this instead of straight in, you generally don't have to worry about any hot liquid splashing up. And yes, if you're keeping score at home, that is one of the official 99 problems. And yes, of course, off camera, I'm going to grab a spatula and clean that blender out into the pot. And then what we'll do once our sauce mixture has been stirred in is crank our heat up to medium-high, because we want to bring this up to a simmer and cook it for about 15 minutes or so. And as usual when we do recipes like this, if you want to skim some of that foam and fat from the top, that is certainly your right. That's just you cooking. And I did a little bit. But either way, like I said, we'll let this cook for about 15 minutes or so. And I say or so because you may want to cook it longer if you want it to reduce a little and thicken up even more. Okay, some people like a thin tinga, and some people like a thick tinga. And right here is what mine looked like when I thought it had simmered long enough. So I don't want mine thin or thick. I want it perfect, which in my opinion is what this is. And then what we'll do at this point is reduce our heat to medium-low, and we can go ahead and add our chicken that we were tearing up into bite-sized pieces while our sauce was cooking. And I should mention, you can do this at any point once your thighs are cool enough to handle, and then you could just pop that in the fridge until needed. But anyway, at some point we will tear up the chicken as shown, and once we're happy with our sauce, we'll go ahead and stir it in. And finally, our chicken tinga's done in about 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, we definitely want to give that chicken enough time to heat through and absorb all these amazing flavors. And speaking of amazing flavors, I do highly recommend using the boneless, skinless thigh here. But if you're one of these lunatics that doesn't like chicken thigh, this exact same recipe will work with chicken breast. You just can't poach it as long. So that's going to be up to you. Okay, you guys are the bosses of making sure your guests give your tingas lots of bazingas. But anyway, like I said, we'll cook that for about 10 or 15 minutes. At which point we'll grab a fork and give it a taste and check the seasoning. And depending on how salty your broth was, you may or may not have to add some salt. But mine was perfect. So I went ahead and served it up in something a little more attractive. And finished it up with some Mexican cotija cheese, as well as some freshly chopped cilantro. And that's it, my chicken tinga's done, and ready to enjoy in so many incredible ways. Burritos, quesadillas, flautas, and of course tacos. But if you happen to know how to make your own crispy, baked tortilla bowls, like I might show you how to do very soon, you could make what I call a tostada, or what the wildlings might call a taco salad. And for me, that is just about the best way to enjoy this incredible chicken recipe. So let me grab a fork and dig in. And above and beyond the absolutely gorgeous color, that, my friends, is just a truly, truly delicious bite of chicken. To me, this just had the perfect balance of spice and a deep, rich savoriness that other stewed chicken dishes just don't have. And there's just something about eating out of an edible bowl that makes everything more fun. Whether you're breaking off pieces and scooping it up, or crumbling it in crouton style, as my Mexican friends in England would say, it really goes down a treat. In fact, it was really hard to stop eating this. Okay, that's enough. Actually, I think I have time for one more bite. But anyway, that's it. How I chicken tinga. Sure, it takes a while, and there's a bunch of steps, but the results are absolutely spectacular. So I really do hope you give this a try soon. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.